about Revelations, you know what I'm saying? Revelations 12. You know what I mean? At birth, I was given the name.
Peace. Here we go. Another day from the desk of apocalypse. Dogs to God's entertainment. Quick word of reflection. This is our second episode of this phase of the podcast, Walking the Road to Recovery. 9 steps in motion. Walking the road to recovery is our journey through drug abuse, where we spent 14 years of our life strung out, and now we're blessed to be 30 years on the other side. And about a year and a half ago, it was that time. It was the right time, although we've been contemplating for the last 10 years. About a year and a half ago, it was that time to go ahead and put this book together, and we were blessed to recall the steps that we were able to make to come up out of that condition. To the degree that we can lay it out in a way to share it with others so that perhaps we can help others overcome this monster called drug abuse. So, from the Death of Apocalypse podcast, the whole idea of this environment is to create a safe place for people to feel comfortable to come and express themselves in this manner. We have put it all out on the table. We have opened our chest so that you can see the surgery that has been done, in hopes that it will open you up to the degree that we can share so that we can get to the other side. We want this to be a place where we can reach the hearts, minds, and souls of as many people that God would allow us to reach so that we can get on this journey, get on this road, which is a never-ending road, because there's always room for improvement and there's always levels of growth. And this, we are creatures of habit. So, once we are able to get up out of drug addiction, then we have other addictions that we will have to face, because we are habitual people. And so these steps are designed to help shape the mind of recovery and to stay in the mind of recovery. Say 9 steps in motion. So in motion means you're still moving. So make the decision was the first step, and today the second step is find the love. Find the love. Now, of course, if you're trapped in addiction, then you obviously have an issue with that 4-letter word called love. Question: do you love yourself? Of course you do, right? Another question: how do you know that you love yourself? What is it that you do that suggests that you love yourself? Good question, right? Another question: are you able to look yourself in the mirror, eye to eye, and say, I love you? Have you ever done it? If you haven't, give it a try. It's good to see how that feels. How does that look? And examine yourself when you do it to see how it resonates. How do you feel when you actually look yourself in the eyes and say, I love you? Give it a try. And so this step will help us lay it out and help us examine the reality of our own situation where love is concerned, love for self is concerned. Okay? You remember back in the day, growing up, you see somebody you like, when you got to that age, right? You see somebody you like, you approach the situation, or you first of all, you get yourself together, like say, okay, how am I going to approach this? Okay, and you get your little lines together, how you going to make your move, what have you. And you're young, so we're talking when you're young, right? So now you make that decision, you go, you approach the situation, then you find out, okay, yeah, I really like her. And then she finds out, oh, I really like him. You're getting to know each other more and more each day. You fellowship together, you're establishing a bond, you know what I mean? And you're having fun. And then, all of a sudden, brother, you get that question. Do you love me? Right. And then you're like, you know I love you, girl. Yeah, you know I love you. But you'll be in trouble if you turn around and say, well, how do you love me? Why do you love me? You know what I mean? So we have to get past that intense feeling of that emotional aspect of love. And that's one of the things that this step is going to help us to consider, help us to ponder. So, again, I want to thank my brother Hakeem, the voice that you're about to hear. And find the love in step number 2 of walking the road to recovery, 9 steps in motion. The next voice that you're about to hear is my brother, your brother, Hakeem. And here we go. Find the love.
Chapter 2, Step 2, Find the Love. As I was drowning in the abyss of self-hate, I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And while I was blasting that pipe, if someone would ask me if I love myself, my answer would be, of course I do. What do you mean, do I love myself? But I didn't realize that the act of smoking crack is a result of deep-seated hatred for myself that will produce self-destruction. It was easy for me to say emphatically, yes, of course I love myself, in the absence of knowing what love really is. So, what is love? In the dictionary, love as a noun is an intense feeling of deep affection. It is a great interest and pleasure in something. As a verb, it states to feel a deep romantic or sexual attachment to someone. This is very basic and elementary when it comes to a word as powerful as love. Hence, this very shallow definition of love made it easy for me to say and think that I loved myself as I was killing myself. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches that love is force and power. He also said that love is the creative force out of which all things are created. Therefore, when there is love, there is life. Love goes beyond feelings and emotions. With this in mind, rational and critical thinking has to be in the equation when it comes to this most profound misunderstood word called love. In this step, we want to introduce a drill. Most people have asked, do you love yourself? The answer will immediately come out, yes. If this question is followed by why or how, you might run into a jam. In this step, it is imperative that you take the time to think it through and write down at least 10 reasons why you love yourself. Once you write them down, analyze them, internalize them. Through these 9 steps of recovery, they are going to always come in handy. In fact, you don't have to stop at 10. Write down as many reasons you can think of why you love yourself. Now, let's explore your mind a little bit. How deep is your love? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not so often, 10 being very often. 1. How often do you exercise to keep your body in good shape? 2. How often do you consciously make the effort to consume healthy foods and drinks? How often do you feed your mind with something inspirational? How often do you set goals to advance your life? How often do you reward yourself for accomplishments that you may achieve? When I started my journey to recovery, it was so hard to come up with 10 real reasons why I had love for self that went beyond feelings and emotions. However, once I was able to dig deep through the mud of self-hate, it became so therapeutic to be able to constantly review and feed on the reasons why I could truly say that I have love for myself. This is a very important step towards recovery. Since love is force and power, and the creative force from which all things come, the more you grow to love yourself, the more you will generate the power to overcome addiction. Consequently, the more you love yourself, the more your actions will become aligned with that which will give you abundant life. Consequently, the more you love yourself, the more your actions will become aligned with that which will give you abundant life. There's another aspect of finding love. Once you can find love in you, it's critical, particularly in the early stages of recovery, to align with others who share that love. This adds to the force and power generated. Just like hot coals keep each other lit, now you have to be selective with the company you keep to determine whether they will be an asset in the journey to recovery. Or will my interactions with them keep me on my ass? In other words, will these relationships add to my life? In my case, I first reached out to my mother. When I hit rock bottom stages, I wasn't able to even look at myself in the mirror. It became so evident that I needed some serious help. So I called my mother and told her point blank, I am killing myself and I don't even care. I need some help. It was something about confessing the truth with someone I love, who I knew loved me. This lifted a burden. Then I called my aunt, who had to overcome drug abuse in her past, to make that same confession. They both stepped up to the plate to make themselves available for my open and true expression. Another key intervention was my late uncle, Paul Armstrong. He did something very significant. He directed me to the Bible in the 7th chapter of Romans. He said, read that, and we will talk about what you have read. This was the first time that someone took the time to sit with me personally to give me understanding of Scripture, where my particular situation was concerned. More on this in a later step. The point here is to find any loved ones who you know have your best interest to allow expression. Finding the love is so important. Drugs appeal to the pleasure center. There's not a human being on the planet who doesn't want pleasure. This world is set up to drown humanity in the sea of pleasure. And if our sense of self is not on the level it should and could be, the disappointment in self drives us towards the need to escape reality with something pleasurable. There is nothing wrong with seeking pleasure. The problem is in the lack of knowledge of self. The lack of knowledge of self is dangerous in a world like the world in which we live. Why? Because this world has a lot to offer that goes contrary to our nature. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that there is nothing about our nature that loves to intake death. Finding true love will help us preserve life. So find the love, write it out. You don't have to stop at 10 things. Write as many as you can come up with. Feed on them. Embrace them to the degree that it brightens your very countenance as you start your day and your walk to recovery.